The morning sun streamed through the curtains, but for Maria the light felt cruel. She had been a devoted wife for years, cooking, cleaning, caring, believing her love was enough. But her world collapsed when she discovered a message on her husband, Daniel's phone. The words were tender, romantic, but they weren't meant for her. Her hands trembled as she scrolled, her heart pounding like thunder. He loves someone else, a younger woman, a slimmer woman. Maria's chest tightened. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "Why?" When confronted, Daniel's eyes held no guilt. Instead, his words sliced deeper than betrayal. "You've let yourself go. I deserve better." It was a dagger to her soul. The man she had loved unconditionally reduced her worth to numbers on a scale. 200 kilograms of shame in his eyes. That night, she sat alone in their bedroom, surrounded by silence that felt heavier than her body. The bed, once warm with love, was now cold and empty. She curled into herself, broken, as the storm of betrayal raged inside her. But beneath the tears, a seed of strength was quietly planted, waiting to grow. Daniel didn't hesitate. He packed his bags quickly, leaving Maria with nothing but silence and humiliation. The neighbors noticed, relatives whispered. Pity followed her everywhere, disguised as kindness. Everyone saw her as the abandoned wife, the woman not good enough. Maria walked through her days like a ghost. She ate alone at the kitchen table, stared at the empty chair across from her, and wondered if she had ever truly been loved. She touched her wedding ring, her fingers trembling, then finally slipped it off. The metal felt heavier than iron. At night, she stood at the window staring at the moon. The house that once echoed with laughter now screamed of betrayal. She pressed her hand against the empty side of the bed, tears staining the pillow. "Was I never enough?" she whispered into the silence. But beneath the sorrow, something stirred. Anger, not wild or loud, but quiet and steady. A fire was igniting deep inside her chest. Daniel hadn't just abandoned her. He had tried to erase her worth. And Maria realized, as painful as it was, this ending wasn't her destruction. It was the beginning of something she couldn't yet see. Maria avoided mirrors for weeks, afraid of the reflection staring back. But one morning, while cleaning, she accidentally caught sight of herself. Her eyes were swollen, her hair messy, but within those tired eyes was something unexpected, a spark. She didn't just see the 200-kilo body Daniel mocked. She saw a woman who had survived betrayal and was still standing. The thought was fragile, like a flickering candle, but it was enough to make her pause. She leaned closer to the mirror. "You're still here," she whispered. It wasn't much, but it was a start. That day, Maria made a decision. She wouldn't let Daniel's betrayal be the last chapter of her story. She deserved better. She deserved to feel alive again, not for him, not for anyone else, but for herself. Her body was heavy, her heart heavier, but she had carried pain before. This time she would carry herself. That small glimpse of strength reflected in her own eyes became the first step toward a future she couldn't yet imagine. Maria began quietly. She laced up old sneakers and stepped outside. The pavement felt unfamiliar beneath her feet. Her lungs burned after only a few steps. Her legs begged her to stop, but she pushed forward. People stared. Some pitied, some mocked. But Maria kept her eyes on the path. The first walk was short. The next day she went a little farther. It wasn't about speed. It was about showing up. Each step whispered, "You are not defeated." At home, she opened her fridge. The shelves were filled with comfort foods that had numbed her pain for years. She closed her eyes, then began clearing it out. Chips, sodas, sugary treats, all gone. In their place, she chose simple meals, fresh vegetables, water. The cravings were merciless, but her determination was louder. At night, exhaustion wrapped around her, but it was different now. Her body ached, yes, but her spirit felt lighter. As she lay in bed, she whispered into the darkness, "Not for him, for me." It was a promise, a fragile one, but real. The first steps of a long journey had begun. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, Maria began to change. Her walks grew longer, her movements easier. Every kilogram lost felt like a victory. One morning, she bent to tie her shoes without losing her breath. She paused, tears filling her eyes. It was a small act, but to her it was freedom. Another day, she climbed the stairs without clinging to the railing. She reached the top, breathless but smiling. "I did it," she whispered proudly. Her neighbors, once pitying her, now watched with surprise. The whispers changed, from ridicule to admiration. People nodded in encouragement as she passed, but more important than their approval was her own. For the first time in years, Maria looked in the mirror and didn't just see weight. She saw determination, strength, and courage. Her reflection no longer carried only pain. It carried hope. The chains that had bound her, shame, betrayal, self-doubt, were breaking one by one, and Maria realized she wasn't just losing weight. She was gaining herself back. Maria's transformation was no longer just physical. It was emotional. She joined a fitness group at the community center, trembling with nerves on her first day. But the people welcomed her with smiles, cheering her progress instead of mocking her past. For the first time, she felt like she belonged somewhere outside her marriage. She laughed during workouts, made friends who shared her struggles, and began to discover joy in places she had forgotten. Beyond exercise, she explored new hobbies. She picked up painting, filling canvases with colors that mirrored her emotions. She signed up for cooking classes, not to feed someone else, but to nourish herself. Her evenings, once filled with loneliness, now bloomed with activities that sparked life into her days. Slowly, she began to realize her worth had never been tied to Daniel. It had always been within her, waiting to be seen. Maria wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living. As the months passed, Maria's confidence blossomed. She no longer dressed to hide herself, but to celebrate her progress. Soft dresses replaced baggy clothes, and she experimented with makeup for the first time in years. She stood before the mirror one evening, tracing lipstick across her lips. When she smiled, her reflection smiled back. It wasn't vanity, it was self-love. Her skin glowed from healthier choices, her hair shone with care, and her laughter returned lighter than ever before. She wasn't just becoming healthier, she was becoming radiant. The woman Daniel had abandoned was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, braver, and undeniably beautiful. For the first time in a long time, Maria didn't compare herself to anyone else. She didn't need validation from neighbors, relatives, or even Daniel. She was enough, always had been, and when people told her she looked beautiful, she no longer shrank away from the compliment. She lifted her chin and said, "Thank you." One evening, a friend from her fitness group suggested something outrageous. "Maria, you should join the local beauty pageant." Maria laughed at first. Me, a beauty queen? The idea seemed impossible. But the seed was planted. That night, lying in bed, she imagined herself walking on stage, not for others, but to prove to herself how far she had come. After days of hesitation, she signed up. Fear clawed at her, but courage whispered louder. Preparing for the pageant became her new challenge. She practiced walking in heels, perfected her posture, and learned to speak confidently in front of others. Doubts haunted her, but she refused to quit. Every rehearsal reminded her of the woman she had become. A survivor, a fighter, a dreamer. When the day of the competition finally arrived, Maria's heart pounded. The stage lights were blinding, but so was her determination. Maria stepped onto the stage in a flowing gown that shimmered beneath the lights. The audience gasped, not at her weight loss alone, but at the undeniable glow that radiated from her. Each step was steady, graceful, filled with pride. Her smile captivated the judges, but it was her confidence that made them lean forward in awe. She spoke passionately during the Q&A, sharing her story of betrayal, pain, and transformation. The hall grew silent, her words striking hearts. She was no longer the woman Daniel had mocked. She was a woman who had rebuilt herself piece by piece, stronger and more beautiful than ever. As the applause roared, Maria knew she had already won, even before the crown was placed. When the announcer declared her the winner, Maria's knees nearly buckled. The crown sparkled on her head, but it was her tears that shone brightest. The audience rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. Among them was Daniel, his face pale with disbelief. The wife he had discarded, the woman he had mocked, now stood as a queen before the world. But Maria didn't look for him. Her eyes searched only for the future, the one she had built herself. Holding the crown, she smiled. It wasn't revenge that warmed her heart, but freedom. Daniel's betrayal had once broken her, but it had also pushed her to discover her true strength. The chapter of pain was closed. A new story had begun. And in that story, Maria was not a victim. She was a queen,